If you're thinking about opening up a business in New York City, this video is going to save you tens of thousands of dollars. So most new business owners around here assume that rent is going to be their biggest cost, and so they plan their whole budget around that. But what actually sinks most businesses early on are the hidden costs that no one really warns you about until it's too late. I'm a physical therapist, and in 2023, my partners and I started our own physical therapy practice right here in New York City. In this video, I'm going to break down the hidden costs of starting a business here in New York City. I'm gonna give you real numbers, real examples, and I'm gonna give you the advice that I wish we got when we first started. So one of the first and most expensive surprises that you might run into as a new business owner here in New York City is the cost of hiring professionals. And I'm not even talking about hiring employees or anything. I'm talking about lawyers, architects, people like that. So before you even open your doors for business, you might need to hire an architect to draft floor plans, plan out the space, make sure everything is up to code, especially if you plan on doing build outs or renovations. So I don't know about other places, but in New York City, architects can charge anywhere from $600 to $800 per hour, depending on their experience and the complexity of your job. So that hourly rate, the hours are gonna rack up quickly because that includes, like I said before, the floor plans, doing the build out of the space, making sure everything is up to code. But even after you do all that, there's gonna be revisions. They might have to do multiple walkthroughs with the contractors. They're gonna spend a lot of time coordinating with the Department of Buildings, depending on what you wanna do. And so yeah, that hourly rate is gonna rack up pretty quickly. So the architect is one professional that you're gonna have to work with. When it comes to these commercial leases, you're not gonna just wanna sign blindly. You're really gonna wanna hire an attorney to help you review the lease and maybe even negotiate on your behalf. So like I said, I don't know about other places, but in New York City, good attorneys in this industry can cost anywhere from $500 to $1,200 per hour. There was even one firm that gave us a flat rate quote. Their quote was anywhere from $18,000 to $30,000 to do this job for us, which was insane. And so we ended up asking around. A friend of ours recommended their lawyer, who ended up giving us a discounted rate of $540 per hour. And so that's who we ended up going with. And so I know these numbers sound crazy to you right now, but trust me, it's worth it. I know it's hard to believe, but the hourly rates that these attorneys charge are way worth it because signing a bad lease from a sketchy landlord can cost you thousands and thousands of dollars and even more in like headaches down the road. And so hiring a good lawyer is worth it. It's just a cost that you're gonna have to plan for and save for. So for example, right now we're negotiating a new lease and the lawyer that we hired, like I said, costs $540 per hour at the discounted rate. But it seems like it's gonna be worth it because he found in this lease so many stipulations and statements that he wanted to change that weren't in our favor. And so that is something that could have cost us thousands and thousands of dollars down the road. And who knows how many headaches that could have caused us down the road. And so even though these numbers sound crazy, especially when you're first starting out, you have to trust that it's worth it. And it's gonna save you a ton of money down the road. So yeah, legal fees and architect fees are a huge investment up front, but it's something that you really don't want to skip out on or cheap out on because it can really save you in the long term. So another hidden cost is insurance. And in New York City, there's a lot of different insurance policies that you're gonna have to carry depending on your business type. So at the bare minimum, you're gonna have to get general liability insurance, which covers accidents and injuries that happen on your premises. If you have employees, you're legally required to have workers' compensation insurance, which covers your staff in case they get injured while on the job. Then there's professional liability insurance, which if you offer a service, like we do, we offer physical therapy as a service. So if you have medical services, legal services, any type of service, you're gonna wanna get professional liability insurance because then that protects you in case someone sues you saying that you made their condition worse or something like that. Property insurance is another essential insurance that you wanna get, especially if you have expensive equipment or if you have inventory. So when you add up all these insurances, you're looking at, in New York City, about $5,000 to $8,000 a year in insurance costs. And so that's something you really can't avoid. So you're gonna wanna just add that to your expenses. Taxes are another hidden cost that a lot of people don't take into account. Most people take into account the fact that they're gonna have to pay federal taxes, and so they plan for that. But depending on where you are, for the sake of this video, we're talking about New York City, you're gonna have to pay New York State tax and New York City tax. So if you're starting a business in New York City, you're gonna have to pay federal taxes, New York State taxes, and New York City taxes. And so that's in addition to sales taxes and payroll taxes if you have employees, and self-employment tax if you don't. And so the way we plan for this is we basically set aside 40% of our revenue for paying taxes. Usually we don't have to pay that full 40% because there's deductions, and that's a pretty high estimate. But we just like setting aside 40% because we don't want to be hit with an unexpected tax bill that we can't afford to pay. So yeah, if you were asking me for advice, I would suggest if you're starting a business in New York City, set aside 40% of your revenue for taxes. And so getting in contact with a good CPA is probably a good idea even before you start the business, just so they can teach you about taxes, give you a good idea of what you're gonna have to save for. Hiring the CPA is another professional cost that you're gonna have to add in. I think to file our first tax return, my CPA charged me $450, and so that just gives you an idea of what you could be paying. But yeah, getting a good CPA is definitely worth it. Again, that's not something that you wanna cheap out on or skip. Another hidden cost that you're gonna wanna take into account are delays. And when you're trying to get things done in New York City, delays are gonna be inevitable. Death, taxes, and delays in New York City. So you may sign your lease and think you're gonna get your business going in 60 days, but between inspections, permits, all those type of things, that can easily get pushed back to like 4 to 6 months. And during that time, of course, you're paying rent. And in New York City, as you can imagine, that's gonna be high. Luckily, if you watch my other video where I give you the clinic tour, I told you what my rent is. And so if you wanna know what I'm paying personally, go check that video out. But yeah, rent in New York City, depending on the space and the neighborhood you're in, can cost, anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 a month. And so, those delays are gonna really hurt. So during that time where you're delayed, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, you obviously have to pay rent. And so when you're first starting out, I would kind of take a pessimistic view on this and just assume that you're gonna get delayed X amount of months and try to give yourself a buffer of money that you can use to pay rent and cover your expenses while things are being delayed. You'll often hear this referred to as rent burn, and that's basically just because you're burning cash without getting any returns. So I'll give you an example in our case. So we are a physical therapy business, and so we provide physical therapy services, and we get paid by people's insurance companies. And so when you first start your business, there's an application process and approval process that you have to go through with these insurance companies. And so this approval process can take a long time. It could take 3 months, 4 months. And so even though we were working with patients and providing service from day one, we didn't get reimbursed for those sessions until 3-4 months later, some even longer. And we kind of knew that this was gonna happen early on. We just didn't expect it to be that long. We thought that there would be a few weeks delays, maybe 4 weeks delayed between seeing a patient and getting reimbursed for them, but it ended up taking months. And so, we were burning cash paying for our expenses without getting any reimbursements back early on. Another hidden cost that you're definitely gonna run into early on is your security deposit. Most people understand that when they take out a lease, they're gonna have to pay a security deposit. I don't think they realize how much security deposits are for commercial leases though, because most of the time the only frame of reference you have for a lease are rentals, like residential rentals, I mean. And so usually in residential rentals, your security deposit is 1 month's rent. For commercial leases, oftentimes it's 3 to 6 months rent. And so I mentioned that we're negotiating a new lease right now. They were asking for 6 months rent in security deposit. Which is insane. So that's something that our lawyer helped us negotiate. And so we got them down to 3, but still 3 months rent up front is a big charge. Honestly, it's one of our biggest expenses up front is that security deposit. So if you're in New York City and you're trying to plan out your expenses as a new business owner, again, I would kind of take the pessimistic route just for your planning and set aside 6 months rent for your security deposit. And so obviously you know the math on this, but if you agree on a lease where your monthly rent is $10,000, that means you're gonna have to pay anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 upfront as your security deposit. So yeah, this is a big one. Like I said, if your rent's $10,000 a month, you're gonna have to pay $30,000 to $60,000 upfront security deposit. You won't see this money again for years. A lot of these commercial leases are 7 years, 10 years. So this is a large chunk of money that you're not gonna see for a while. So writing that check is gonna hurt. If you made it this far into the video, I hope I didn't scare you out of starting a business in New York City. I just wanna give you a realistic starting point, a realistic frame of reference for how things are gonna look early on. I think a lot of people have these business ideas in their head and they look at the idea through rose-colored glasses and they think, things are gonna take off right away. And I'm not saying that it won't take off. I just want you to understand what you're getting yourself into. And I would look at these costs as an investment. All this money that you're paying up front is an investment in your business that you will see again. You will see it once your business becomes profitable and successful. And once your business does become profitable and successful, you're gonna wanna know how to pay yourself. And so watch this video where I talk about how to pay yourself through an LLC.